happen in Japan. You're going to see people die of radiation poisoning. The globalists like soft kill. They like things that kill you in 10 years, 20 years. Then they get to suck all the money out of you with their cancer treatment and the rest of it. They do not like people falling over dead in a week. And let me tell you, radiation poisoning is not pretty. Teeth falling out, gums bleeding, blood pouring out of your intestines, through your hind end. I mean, it is not fun. And this is horrible what's happening. And the radiation levels are rising in Japan. And no one really knows what's going on at that plant facility. But we're going to be here on the news websites and live on air covering all of this continually. We are going to be here covering this. And if things continue to deteriorate, I may be on 9 o'clock tonight. I might be on at 6 a.m. in the morning. Whatever we have to do to really look at every angle of this, and that's why talk radio is so good for this, is that we can spend a lot of time looking at every facet, debating, discussing, putting our heads together. I correct callers, callers correct me. We help each other. We bring each other the information. By the way, I know I put it out in the last hour. Can you guys print me some of the Twitter questions specifically, or I bet you've already brought those into me. Stuff stacks up so quick. I gave out the twitter.com/Real Alex Jones earlier, and I promised to answer some of your questions, so we'll go through some of those in a moment. Who's up first here in this list of callers? Paul in New York. Before we go to Paul, I want to say this. Everybody, especially media outlets who I know are listening, contact the government, enforce them to give a statement about what they're doing, about preparations for fallout, because we're getting the intel that's happening. We need to confirm this right now, okay? You know, we sit here for hour after hour covering this, and in a way you kind of get punch drunk to all of it. But my children are in the fallout path of the jet stream. Yours are. Your mother, your daughter, your sons, your grandmother, your children. I am upset about this, and I know you are. Yesterday I blew up a lot on air because there was still cover-ups going on. You notice I'm pretty calm now because the cover-up is unraveled. And at least we have some preparation and can see it coming, even though it's invisible, if government and industry and private groups do what they have to test. I mean, there should be aircraft. In fact, I got to write articles about this. I should do a YouTube video. There should be U.S. naval aircraft, U.S. Air Force aircraft, U.S. Army aircraft all over that area of the Pacific with radiation meters reporting back to the public. Now, I'll guarantee you they're up there right now, and they know exactly what's coming this way. They know what isotopes. They've got the devices that pick it all up with precision. Now, you notice we're 4 days into this, and you're not heard anything about that. You just know that yesterday morning when Fukushima 3 blew up, that plutonium-powered plant, the main fleet hightailed it out of there, started running south as fast as they could. Now, that's not a good indicator, is it? Paul in New York, you're on the air.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, Alex, thanks. You do such a great job covering all of this, and I really appreciate it. I just wanted to bring up a quick point that I think is getting lost in this story, is that the Saudi Arabian army is now all in Bahrain, and they're killing protesters.
Sir, are you on speakerphone?
No, I'm not. I'm on a cell phone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you better. Okay, getting lost in this is that the Saudi Arabians have rolled into Bahrain with a bunch of troops and tanks, and everything's getting wild, yes.
They're shooting protesters, and if you go on Al Jazeera and you look at the video on there, titled "Bahrain Imposes State of Emergency," I think it's pretty compelling that they're using nerve gas.
Well, that's the thing. They never call martial law. If people are ever waiting for that term to be used, they call it civil emergency.
So I just wanted to point that out. If people want to go on Al Jazeera and look at Bahrain imposes state of emergency and see for themselves what's going on there.
Thank you, sir. We'll get that up on screen for folks right now. Al Jazeera, Bahrain imposes state of emergency. I've actually got reports here saying that. I haven't seen the video of them shooting people, but that's par for the course in these third world countries and now here in America. Pete in Michigan, you're on the air. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you kind of a bit of a question. A couple months ago or a month ago, you were talking about how the elites were moving down to South America around Chile and Argentina and all that. And it's been kind of the the talk that they were possibly going to try a nuclear attack in America to kill a bunch of people and then impose martial law. What do you think about the possibility that maybe they caused the earthquake, which made this nuclear disaster in Japan with the Tesla weapons they have, and maybe that's why they knew they were going to do that ahead of time. That's why they're. But
see, I mean, I'm not saying you're bad for asking that question, but at the same time, we can't prove that. The general public doesn't know they have weather modification, much less tectonic weapons that Secretary of Defense Cohen, back in '97 in the Army Times, April 28th issue, and others have talked about it. And yes, HAARP is involved with that. And yes, that's a real situation. But we also had a huge solar flare hit the Earth that top astrophysicists say manipulates the magnetic field, the tectonic plates, along with the moon being the closest to the Earth had been in 18 years. And a lot of top scientists predicted massive earthquakes, especially around Japan, because of this. So I think my gut leans more towards it not being HAARP. Folks love to blame everything on the government. I certainly am happy to when they're involved in it. And they may be. But the globalists are mainly moving out of the U.S. and the West because they've so robbed it blind, they're worried about getting arrested. I appreciate your call. Good points. Who's up next here? Richard in Vermont. You're on the air worldwide.
Hi, Alex. Yeah, I spoke with you yesterday. I'm the guy that built the submarines there for 13 years. And
yes.
I was telling you about the Mark 1, Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3. Okay, that was, you were wondering, and I was wondering, what we saw fall out of that cloud of smoke from number 3. On the article that you guys have posted, and I've seen it all over the internet today by Kirk James Murphy regarding the Chernobyl on steroids, there's one paragraph in there which gives a pretty good indication of what's going on here, and I checked the schematic diagrams of the Mark 1 reactors, and these particular reactors, not the 2 and 3, but these particular ones, have got their spent fuel rods sitting on top of the containment vessel.
I saw that in the news. They admitted that the spent fuel rods are sitting inside of the containment deal, and that's what it looked like to me shooting up in the sky.
On top of the containment vessel. In other words, when that explosion went, there was enough pressure underneath the bottom of that to shoot that containment vessel with those spent rods in it. It says right here, I've got the
give me the headline on that, because I did see that in a whole bunch of articles. It just, side note, mentioned that in several of the reactors, sitting inside on top of the containment vessel are the spent fuel rods, and that was the fire at number 2 that actually caught it was number 4 that caught some of those on fire. Wow. Again, hidden in plain view, putting our heads together, Richard. Specifically, what's the article? Because I got a sea of them here that had that about the spent fuel rods. If we just search spent fuel rods fire, it'll show you all the articles that have it. Man.
Fuel rod fire at Fukushima reactor would be like Chernobyl on steroids. And it was
let me write it. Fuel rod
fire
at Fukushima.
At Fukushima reactor would be like Chernobyl on steroids. And it was written by Kirk James Murphy, who is an MD. He's a doctor.
And what do we repost that from? What's the original source?
It's on your front page of Infowars.com, and it is one of the highlighted articles down there that, if you click on it, was the original source was FDL, whatever that is.
All right, I see it. I'm going to get Watson on this. This is hidden in plain view. We're more than 24 hours out of Fukushima 3 blowing. So that Mark 1 was, because I saw that, absolutely. Okay. Spent fuel rods sitting on, which are highly radioactive, sitting on top of the containment vessel, and that's what it looked like, was rod casing shooting up into the sky.
Those are plutonium that's mixed in there. Inside of that, inside those spent rods are plutonium rods. Those things fall into the water or anywhere on the ground around there, absolute shit is going to hit the fan, because those things are going to get into the water, and like we were talking yesterday, a particle of dust. Like if you were dusting your furniture and you see all these you have a little ray of sunlight shining through it.
Sir, incredible info. Guys, get me Watson on air right now, please. Please, I'll call him. I want him to call him on his cell phone. It's the only thing he ever answers. I want him on air right now. This is an emergency situation. Yeah, because he won't answer his home, is what I'm telling you. Richard, this is huge. You know why this is huge? Because I read that in AP, an article after article this morning. Oh, there was a fire at 2 and a thing at 4. And yeah, and I read plant after plant, multiple ones. They're storing the spent fuel rods inside of the main containment shield, but on top of the containment vessel of the active rods. And you're right, the Mark I is 7% plutonium, 93% uranium. Those would be uranium, plutonium rods. Oh my gosh, because they're all saying, don't worry, it's safe, it's inside. They know full well with the design that it blew them sky high. Oh my gosh. That's why we've been on air for almost 5 hours. We're putting our heads together, hidden in plain view. Whoa. Whoa, man, that means fallout. Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. Can you imagine those things, when they get hot, are basically like graphite. They fall apart easily, especially spent rods that have already been in heat. How much of that would be aerosolized? How much of that would be aerosolized, Richard? Richard's gone. We got Paul. Paul Watson, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm actually staggered right now, Paul. This is an emergency situation. I know you've already written 3 articles today, busting your butt. You're 6 hours ahead of us. You are my #1 guy to get this right. I want you to take notes right now. This is an emergency situation. Now, I have literally this morning probably read 50 or more articles in entirety. I'm just putting some background here so people know where I'm coming from. I am exhausted. So you're going to have to dig this out. But it's everywhere. But I know I've read it in no fewer than 10 or 12 articles and put the one on screen that has the links to the mainstream news. I'm going to give this to Watson as a source right now. Listen to me carefully. Fuel rod at Fukushima reactor would be like Chernobyl on steroids by FDL, Kirk, James, Murphy, and MD. Now listen. This is what's key, my friend. This is what's key. I have read it in article after article, and we just had the guy that worked on nuclear submarines. He looked up the schematics of a Mark I General Electric MOX reactor that's 7% plutonium, 93% uranium driven. And I read this in article after article after article, and it's in that article. But you've got to search the term spent fuel rods fire. Spent fuel rods fire. That will bring you up the upteen jillion. Because if I saw 10 or 12 I read without looking, and I just saw it in the footnotes, didn't know what I was seeing, I was like, spent fuel rods caught on fire, but they were able to put them out. And knowing that would release some stuff. Well, guess where they store it? And this is in the news, hidden in plain view. No one has picked up on this. People are saying, oh, boy, if there is a fire with these, which has now happened, it'll be Chernobyl. Forget that. There was an explosion. They store on top of the containment vessel, inside, on top of it, inside the dome, inside the blast shield, the main overall containment dome, they store, because they're highly toxic and radioactive, the Mark I uranium, plutonium spent rods on top of it. And I know when he said it, bingo, because I read that in article after article after article, because at the other plant that blew up today, I think it was 4, they were storing them in there too, but it's a different design. At the Mark I, and he looked up the schematics, they are on top of it. So they're not so the media is saying, don't worry, okay, we have a breach at 2, probably at 4, but it's only little. The seals may be broken, some may get out. The truth is they were storing inside the main containment dish over the internal containment of the active reactor, the spent fuel rods of the last bunch that the Mark I had used. It's been there for 40 years. And looking at it and studying nuclear reactors, I know what rod casings look like, and I blew up the video and saw black rod casings and set it on air yesterday when it blew up at Fukushima 3 that looks like the guts of a reactor. Well, of course, they've got all the old pulled spent batteries sitting there, still deadly radioactive, and so it was the big. It makes